Okay, colleagues, welcome. We're here on a snowy February 3rd on the heels of the free community dinner, which is happening every Tuesday. And it's my pleasure to call our meeting to order at 6:36 p.m. And I would invite a council colleague to read the land acknowledgement. I would recognize that Councillor Wilson is not able to join us this evening. She is playing in a hockey tournament, a provincial or national hockey tournament. So is, I don't think with us this evening or not online. Is that right? Okay, perfect. So she has sent her regrets. So I will look to Councillor Strachan to read the land acknowledgement. Thank you.
The municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous-informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation.
Thank you, Councillor Strachan. So just a few quick remarks before we begin with the formal proceedings. As some of you saw, the Kemptville Creek Skateway is now officially open. So thanks to our Parks and Rec team who have worked hard to ensure the conditions were right to open the skateway. And we know it is enjoyed by a range of skaters, both recreational and beyond. So wonderful to see that the winter weather cooperated in regards to our skateway. Next, I would just like to recognize the Kemptville Male Choir, who I understand recently donated to the Kemptville Youth Center. Obviously, we appreciate all the organizations that step up to support worthy organizations such as the Youth Center and others. So thank you, Kemptville Men's Choir. We also, as you know, are circulating our invitation for Civic Awards nominees. So council colleagues, if you haven't spread the word, make sure to do so. And if there's anyone watching online or here who feels that there is someone they'd like to nominate, please feel free to do so. The deadline is later this month and the nomination form is fairly simple. So we'd love to hear from community members on their perspectives on who should be recognized. Also, we understand that the Kemptville Curling Club has a 20th anniversary on February 14th. Of course, you'll remember that the Kemptville Curling Club was in receipt of a Trillium grant just in the last year to help rebuild their refrigeration equipment and ensure a bright future for the curling club, which I understand is bursting at the seams. I had a meeting yesterday where we talked about parking, council colleagues, so stay tuned. I think there will be something on the agenda in the next month or so to look at some options in that regard. And then as well, as many have come to mark the calendar in mid-February, Sunday, February 15th is the annual Community Sweetheart Brunch. Councillor Sullivan was communicating earlier today, I think trying to lock most of us down for a shift, serving food at the Sweetheart Brunch. Of course, every year the Knights of Columbus, who has overseen the brunch for so many decades now, endeavors to give back to local organizations. And we really do appreciate all of the hard work and the continued commitment to making this breakfast happen. And I'm sure there's many things that I haven't touched upon tonight, but I would be remiss if I didn't highlight that on February 19th at 7 p.m., the Municipal Centre will welcome residents for a Women's Heart Health Information event. We did speak of it last week, Councillor Sullivan. I know the Health, Wellness and Active Transportation Committee has been particularly instrumental in getting this session off the ground. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to say about the event.
No, just it's a free event. It's not just for women, and we hope to see as many people there as possible. And the presenter is from the University of Ottawa Heart Institute, and she is a Women at Heart program ambassador. So they are all trained by the Heart Institute to do these presentations. So it'll be a very informative evening.
Excellent, thank you. And thank you to members of the committee for their commitment to getting that session off the ground. So have I forgotten anything, colleagues? Oh, that's worth mentioning. I do have, of course, Deputy Mayor brought to my attention that the Globe and Mail publishes Canada's most livable cities. And we have been on the overall ranking of the top 100 for a number of years. This year, North Grenville's ranking is 56. We think we should be in the top 10, quite frankly. So we're going to be engaging the Globe and Mail and better understanding some of their criteria, because I know every year we, I think, collectively as a community, take a step forward in increasing the quality of life for residents here in our growing community. But we are on the top 100 list. And if I look at the communities that rank below 56, we have St. John's at 61. We have Caledon at 72. We have Calgary at 78, Mississippi Mills at 85, Red Deer at 93, and Richmond at 100. So I think we are blessed to earn the 56th spot. But I think, as you know, many of us around the council table are competitive and will want to see that number, that ranking improve for another year. But thank you, Deputy Mayor, for bringing that to my attention once again.
I have noticed from a resident that online we're listed as 54th, so we're
Well, there we go.
rising with a bullet, I think.
As the hours progress during the day, our ranking gets better. Okay, anything else, colleagues? Seeing none. Okay, we'll move on. So adoption of the agenda, of course, we have two delegations this evening. So thank you both to the Youth Center and to Dr. Colin Santago, who's in the back there, who will be presenting second. And we would like council colleagues to ask for your indulgence to amend our agenda so the staff report can follow the deputation from the Kemptville District Hospital. So that would be the only adjustment on the agenda this evening. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Strachan and Councillor Sullivan, thank you. And I'll go to Deputy Mayor for a question.
Yeah. On my printed copy, we have a presentation of the audit. I don't see that online.
Yes, I think the audit presentation has been moved, Ms. Boss, if you can confirm.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Deputy Mayor, you are looking at a draft agenda cover sheet. So the agenda reflects that the audit presentation has been moved into the next month.
I think you mean this month, later this month?
We are still confirming the schedule with the Director of Finance's schedule, and she's scheduled to be away for the second regular council meeting of the month. At this time, we are looking at March 3rd.
Okay, and we can have a follow-up on exactly what that timing might be, understanding that I think council is very eager to, of course, receive the audit. But thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think the hope had been that it would be here this evening, but it is not. So with that, the motion's on the table. I'll look to call the vote unless there are any other questions. Not seeing any. All in favor, in terms of the amended agenda, that carries. Next is declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Of course, colleagues, this is in regards to any perceived or real financial benefit or loss arising from items on the agenda this evening. Are there any declarations? I'm not seeing any, so we will move on. And it's my pleasure to welcome Ms. Diana Fisher, and I thank colleagues to give us an update on programming and other considerations. Thank you for being here.
Your Worship, members of council, and members of the public, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Diana Fisher, and since October, I've been serving as president of the board of directors for the Kemptville Youth Center. And I have with me Ashley McDonough, who is our Chief Lion Tamer program coordinator. We appreciate the chance to provide an update on youth center activities as you enter your budget deliberations. We can change the slide. The Kemptville Youth Center was founded by community members who believe deeply in supporting young people. Their vision was simple but powerful: create a safe, inclusive space where every youth feels welcome, heard, and valued. A place where they can share their challenges, explore their interests, and imagine their future. That vision continues to guide us today. Our programs help youth talk, discover, and express themselves as they navigate adolescence and build the confidence they need for a bright future. Next slide. KYC is a space where youth can truly be themselves. Our expectations are straightforward. Treat one another with respect. Through daily interactions, youth naturally learn about diversity, equity, and inclusion. They practice conflict resolution, fair play, and teamwork. They build social skills, resilience, and self-confidence, skills that benefit them at school, at home, and in the community. Our youth learn to volunteer and give back to their community, and they find their voice so they can be powerful advocates for the causes they believe in. In 2025, next slide. In 2025, more than 50 new youth registered at KYC, reflecting the continued growth of North Grenville's population. We share the responsibility of supporting our youth with the municipality and our many community partners. Food insecurity remains a significant issue for many families. A number of youth arrive at the center hungry, and thanks to generous partners like House of Lazarus and the Krusty Baker, we're able to offer daily mini meals. We also provide weekend food backpacks for those who need them. Our youth benefit from a wide range of community partnerships that support programming in sports and fitness, music, arts and crafts, cooking, and mental health. These programs help youth discover their strengths, develop new skills, and build healthy coping strategies they can use beyond our walls. Our community partners also support us with in-kind donations of their skills and labor. We recently had a window replaced by R&S Glass, free of charge. We have a couch in for reupholstery with Tank House Fabrications, and our lighting and door locks are all being replaced at cost. We are very grateful for our community partners. Next slide, please. KYC was fortunate to receive a $20,000 grant from Bell Let's Talk for 2026. We will be contracting with local registered art therapist Patricia Cameron, and she's going to provide a number of different initiatives for mental health, including 3 art therapy groups focused on female identifying youth. We're also going to have 7 psychoeducational art workshops for other teens in our center. And we're going to continue our partnership with R&J Youth Services. We have a mental health system navigator on site 2 hours per week. The youth are used to him, and it gives them someone they can talk to. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I forgot something from the last slide. That's fine, you don't have to go back. We're grateful for the municipality's Mental Health Initiatives Fund, which enabled us to create our new recharge station. This quiet, comfortable space equipped with beanbag chairs and noise-canceling headphones gives youth a place to decompress after school. I tried the beanbag chairs, they're very comfortable. It has been especially valuable for neurodivergent youth who may become overstimulated, as well as any young person needing a moment of calm. Mental health support has always been central to KYC's mission, and the need among today's youth continues to grow. Your investment has made a meaningful difference. Now everyone can feel comfortable and at home at the youth center. And now we're on to the budget slide. We have once again begun the year in a deficit. However, based on our planned fundraising activities, including the book fair, golf tournament, community contributions, and anticipated grant funding, we're confident that we will return to a balanced position by year end. As North Grenville continues to grow, we look forward to strengthening partnerships that support local youth and contribute to the long-term health and vibrancy of the community. Operating the youth center has become a full-time undertaking. Each day is divided between grant writing, outreach, partnership development, and administration, alongside the delivery of high-quality, youth-centered programming. To reflect these operational realities and ensure effective service delivery, we've updated the operations manager job description to align with the level of responsibility required. This is now a full-time role, and we're currently finalizing our recruitment process for a new manager as our beloved Roxanne has retired. Municipal funding directly supports our core operations and enables us to offer a living wage to a qualified and experienced individual in this essential role. To maintain service levels, meet increasing community needs, and ensure the sustainability of our programming, we respectfully request an additional $15,000 from the municipality of North Grenville. This increase would bring the annual municipal contribution to $60,000. Thank you for considering this request as part of your municipal budget deliberations. We value our ongoing partnership with the municipality, and we remain committed to supporting the young people who will shape our community's future. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I have Ashley here who's better at answering them.
Excellent. Colleagues, any questions? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you both for being here, and thank you for all the invaluable work that you do providing for the youth in North Grenville. It's very important. I do wonder if you could go to the slide on the finances, please. I'm wondering why the budget for donations and fundraising is so much lower this in 2026. Like donations were 54,000, then 47,000, and now 19,500. That's significantly lower. And the grant and the fundraising too is also lower than the previous 2 years. And the grants at 91,000, does that include the Bell Let's Talk 20,000?
So by year end, I do not believe that the Bell Let's Talk number was included in there. Also, I have had my own questions about these. They're very conservative numbers. So when I'm talking about bringing the role of the operations manager, for example, up to a living wage and the various grants that we've applied for, they're not really reflected in there. We're trying to reflect what our expenses would be, but we're not taking grants, you know, at face value until they come in. The grants last year did drop because United Way wasn't able to give us as much as usual because they didn't receive as much. That's the best I can give as an explanation. I don't know if Ashley has any other input on that, other than I was told it's very conservative. It's kind of a moving target as the year goes on. But we know we start with an average deficit pretty much every year for the last few years at 50,000.
The Bell Let's Talk is going directly to our programming for the mental health initiative, so that wouldn't be included in anything else like payroll or anything,
Okay,
because that's just delegated straight towards those.
fair enough. So if your donations and your grants were more in line with previous years, then you may not need the extra 15,000 from the municipality. Is that correct?
We have raised the salary of our operations manager. So although we expect to have very successful fundraising and grants, we can't really count on them being exactly what we asked for. And we do need to cover that salary. So if we can increase our input from the municipality, strengthen that partnership, that will just make it easier for us to have less of a deficit starting next year.
Okay, thank you.
Council colleagues, other questions? My question is, I know that the number of youth you serve daily, weekly, monthly has changed. And I know the cohort, the age cohort has changed because you reduced the minimum age at which youth could start coming into the center. Can you paint a picture of what an average afternoon at the youth center looks like in terms of both the ages of kids you're seeing and the number of kids you would be serving on a kind of regular weekday afternoon?
So I just finished my monthly report for January, and I ended up having an average of 27 youth per day. but it really varies per day. Like Mondays are oftentimes larger amounts, and same with Fridays. And then for the age range, I'd say the average age we have is around 12 to 13. So with those younger ages, which our age range is 11 to 19. So it's a lot of those younger ages, a lot of the times around, I'd say 2:30 is when we get the major wave of most of the youth that come. And those will mostly stay around 5:30. And there are still some stragglers around 6 o'clock as well. But our biggest time when I say we have the most youth is around 2:30 to 5:30.
And if I might, on those Mondays where you see like lots of youth coming in, what's your sense of what they're looking for? Is it camaraderie? Is it nutrition? Is it structured sort of programs? What do you think their needs are? I ask because I assume after a weekend, right, where maybe some kids haven't had a lot to do, or they're looking for that extra social, right, socialization with their peers outside of a school environment, or maybe their parents are back to work and not home for a few hours. That would be potentially informing their decision to come to the youth center. But I'm hypothesizing. What do you see?
So what I've noticed is there is a large amount of youth that come in just for the food. They'll come in, take a snack. Sometimes there's a couple youth that will come in, just grab a snack and go, or they'll come hang out with some friends, talk. Mondays as well is our cooking and baking program. So that's more nutrition as well too, where they're more keen towards that. I think our average for our cooking program was 9.3 youth engaging in that activity, which is led by Leanne. And they really stick to the food. We have baked goods from the Krusty Baker, obviously, which they really enjoy, but I try to put out a lot of more nutritious foods like fruits. And there's some youth that you notice won't even touch the baked goods. They'll go straight towards the fruit. They want something more. And we get backpacks as well, which they can take home on the weekends, but sometimes it's a little bit embarrassing. So that's kind of the first thing that they do when they walk in. They go straight towards the food.
Thank you. And the additional, I know that the 15,000 doesn't close your projected deficit, of course. And I'm hearing you say that obviously your fundraising expectations are quite conservative. And I know that you have a couple of very successful events. So it would seem that hopefully your fundraising goals would exceed what's currently projected in your budget. Are you relatively confident, given that conversation, that if the municipality could find that additional 15,000, that you'd close the rest of the gap?
So with the book fair, it has traditionally raised about 25,000. Golf tournament has been about 8,000. We have electronics recycling that can be 8 to 10, I believe. So those are pretty consistent. The United Way grant has occasionally dropped by 16,000 from what we projected and far below what we asked. So even with that in consideration, I think we have a really good chance. We always seem to break even at the end of the year. We would like to more than break even. We do have a reserve in case of emergencies, but it doesn't cover us for very long. It's a few months. So we would like to be in a more sustainable position. We have some great community partners helping us to keep our other costs low, as I explained. And we just would like to show that we're good stewards of our funding and also moving forward to becoming more sustainable.
If I could ask one other question, I thank council colleagues for their indulgence, and I know Dr. Santiago is so patiently waiting with his son. So my only other question is, obviously part of the need here is a full-time program director or a director that's being paid full-time. I know your former director worked many, many hours. So can you help me understand how much of a difference will a full-time director make who is formally recognized for full-time work? What is your expectation of that new director?
So we have many opportunities to both grow the client base, as you will, of the youth center. But that takes time to do outreach, going out to schools and telling kids that there's a youth center and telling them what we do. We also have a lot of work to do in erasing stigma, because we want kids to walk in and see themselves there. So that means giving every kid their own space, their own activity, their own comfort zone. And you've helped us with that with the recharge station in particular. That's just an example. We're trying to open our second level because we own a 2-level building, but if you only have one program coordinator, they can't look after everybody. So the full-time operations manager will be able to have those 2 extra hours a day, because they originally worked 6 hours a day, to build the community relationships, help us to find some more grants, some more donations from sponsors, maybe organize some more events. We have gone back to breaking our board into committees to help support the operations manager with some of the nitty-gritty details and the planning. We need to write a whole new strategic plan. Ours outdated in 2024. So there's a lot of things that need to be done that have kind of been let slide, because at any given time last year, we only had one person available to keep the doors open. So it was a lot of just keeping things running. So yeah, it's a very diverse role. We've had some amazing applicants. We had over 12, I think we had 16 applicants that were fairly well qualified. We narrowed it down to 6, and we're down to our last 2 to do second round. Did I answer your question?
Beautifully. Thank you. Okay. If there's nothing else, thank you so much for coming and for your significant dedication to youth in the community. And I'm so glad that any young person that walks through the door can be so warmly received and hopefully get some of what they need from their visits with you. So thank you again. All right, so can I move on, Ms. Boss? Okay. So, Dr. Santiago. Thank you very much for your patience. We know you have a little one with you. Well, we'd like to offer him a granola bar. There's some treats in the side room, so maybe on the way out he can grab something. So we always love seeing kids learning about municipal government. So appreciate that he's here alongside you. So welcome.
Thank you. All right. So good evening, Your Worship, councillors. I'd like to begin today by thanking you all for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. By way of introduction, I'm Dr. Colin Santongo. I'm currently the Chief of Staff at Kemptville District Hospital. The last time I spoke to this esteemed body was back in 2021, and I came to seek your support for the purchase of a CT scanner, and that was a very productive conversation, and I'm hoping that tonight will also yield the same result. And Your Worship, I also want to add that I agree it's a travesty that North Grenville was ranked 54 or 57. I totally concur in that point. I'll also contact the Globe and Mail on your behalf. So today I'm here specifically to discuss the future stability of the Kemptville District Hospital Emergency Department and to present a proposal for a partnership with the municipality that I strongly feel will benefit not only the town of Kemptville, but also the wider region of North Grenville. Next slide. So the purpose of this presentation is fourfold. It's to explain why the emergency physician stability is urgent, why municipal involvement is appropriate. It's also to outline a targeted, time-limited incentive proposal, and lastly, to explain clearly what the value the municipality gains by supporting such an initiative. Next slide. So I'd like to state before I get deeper into the presentation and my thanks to the municipality for the leadership they've provided in family physician recruitment over the years. The municipal incentives that are currently in place have played an important role in attracting family physicians to the community. They've also served an additional purpose in incentivizing those same physicians to provide support for hospital services. And this proposal seeks to build directly on that successful partnership model. Next slide. So why does the emergency department matter? As you're all aware, the emergency department essentially is the only guaranteed access point for healthcare in this community. It serves residents without family doctors. It serves those who need care once those family physicians' offices have closed. And more importantly, they serve those needs of those individuals needing urgent or life-threatening care. In a region such as ours, where there's an ongoing crisis when it comes to primary care shortages, ED stability, in my opinion, represents a direct threat to the community safety. Next slide. So just to give a bit of a background, about 2.5 years ago, KDH faced the real risk of closing the emergency department. This was not due to infrastructure issues, it was not due to equipment issues, it was not even due to lack of nursing. The sole issue was difficulty recruiting and retaining emergency physicians. ED closure, in our opinion, would have been a devastating result for the community. This would have resulted in ambulance diversions, a strain on the local EMS services, and also would have delayed care for patients with the inherent risks that lie in such delays. Next slide. So to address this risk, KDH partnered with the Ottawa Hospital through a pilot arrangement whereby Ottawa Hospital physicians provided coverage with our own KDH physicians. And the goal of this arrangement was to stabilize services during that period of workforce instability. The pilot was very successful over the past 2.5 years, and it provided much needed stability to the ED. Unfortunately, the pilot is set to conclude as of March this year. So armed with this knowledge that the pilot was going to conclude, KDH actually undertook a fairly intensive recruitment effort, and we successfully recruited an additional 10 emergency physicians in addition to the ones we currently had. And I'm certainly convinced that the reason we had such a successful recruitment campaign were three things. Number one was the addition of the CT scan, which the municipality participated and gave their wholehearted support in getting. Those of you who are not too familiar with emergency medicine, it's developed over the years, and certainly for an emergency physician, a CT scanner is considered a gold standard piece of equipment in order for you to practice adequately. The second was that over the past 2.5 years, there certainly has been an improvement in the remuneration of emergency physicians over that period of time. And that certainly has increased the attractiveness of physicians to go into that specialty and to pursue work in places like ours. And the last factor was the fact that we had almost 80 Ottawa Hospital physicians who rotated through our hospital. And during that period of time, a lot of them realized that Kemptville is not a bad place to work. And so those three factors contributed to our pretty effective recruitment campaign. Next slide. So though recruitment has improved, retention still remains fragile. Moreover, the current market when it comes to emergency physicians is extremely competitive. Many physicians work short shifts at multiple different hospitals rather than committing to work in one central location. Next slide. So retention actually matters, in my humble opinion, slightly more than recruitment. A stable emergency department depends on predictable scheduling, a cohesive group which can only be attained over a long period of time, and ultimately those physicians who see themselves at the institution for the long term are more invested in that location. They're more invested in the sense that if they see themselves retiring in there, they're more keen to participate in quality improvement initiatives and so forth. Physician retention also supports nursing stability and frankly, overall patient safety. Next slide. So we could do nothing. And in my opinion, we'd run the real risk of regression to the instability that we previously were exposed to. This would increase reliance on very costly and unpredictable locum coverage, and it would also create operational as well as morale challenges. Next slide. So I personally see emergency department stability as a community safety issue, not just a hospital issue. The municipality already supports physician recruitment in the form of family physicians, and a stable emergency department protects residents and supports community growth and confidence. Next slide. From a municipal perspective, this investment ensures a guaranteed 24/7 emergency access instead of a reduced sort of access profile as one would see in an urgent care setting. It also reduces ambulance diversions, and it also increases the attractiveness of North Grenville for residents as well as employees alike. Next slide. So what we're proposing is a targeted, time-limited emergency department stabilization program involving 6 physicians, 4 full-time and 2 part-time over a 2-year period with a clearly defined funding cap. Next slide. The full-time physicians would receive $25,000 per year in exchange for 90 hours of monthly commitments. This translates to about 13 shifts a month. Part-time physicians would receive $12,500 per year for a 45-hour commitment, which is roughly about 6 to 7 shifts per month. The reason we're breaking it down into hourly versus shifts is that the night shifts, which tend to be the least desirable, are the longest shifts. So if anybody were to receive this incentive, they would be more inclined to pick up night shifts because they'd be able to meet their 90-hour or 45-hour target much easier. Next slide. Accountability and safeguards. So each participating physician would sign a 2-year service agreement, and the incentives would be tied directly to verified hours worked and clear expectations, as well as monitoring of that work. Next slide. So the ask. We're requesting municipal support for this 2-year emergency department stabilization incentive with an annual funding cap of $125,000. The purpose is to protect ED stability as well as community safety. Next slide. A stable emergency department is an essential community infrastructure. This proposal locks in stability while conditions are favorable. As they say, strike while the iron's hot. Thank you for your consideration and continued partnership, and I'm certainly open to any questions.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Santongo, and I will look to colleagues for any thoughts. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I note that you have emphasized time limited and the cap.
Yep.
Are you confident at the end of 2 years that you wouldn't need this kind of incentive? Or how are you hoping to hold on to people past the 2-year mark?
I mean, it's a great question. And to be honest, I had this exact conversation with our Chief of Emergency Services because she was asserting that there would be no cap. And to be honest, the reason we finally decided on a cap was more to not lock in the municipality to costs that they hadn't agreed to initially. If for some reason we had quite a lot of physicians who wanted to participate in the incentive, and those hours sort of exceeded what the municipality committed to, then I honestly didn't think it was fair to keep the municipality on a hook for something that they probably hadn't agreed to initially. So that was one part of it. The second part was, am I confident that after 2 years, those physicians are going to stay there for the long term? Moderately confident in that we're trying to build a culture in that department where people stick around for the long term. And we've certainly experienced that with the Ottawa Hospital folk, is that they came and spent a short period of time and have decided that they wanted to stick around for longer periods of time. And so we're pretty confident that if we can get folks to just commit to us for a 2-year period, they will be with us for the long term. Is there any guarantee in that? Absolutely not. But the reality is that physicians are considered independent practitioners. And what that means is that they can pretty much go wherever they feel like going to. They're not employees, and we can't lock them into anything beyond a 2-year contract.
Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Santongo. It's always great to have you here. And yes, your son was with you last time, but I think he's grown a little bit in the last few years. So they have a tendency to do that. I guess my question is sort of related to what the Deputy Mayor has brought up, is that changing the culture and giving folks a chance to come in, see what we're all about, and love being here and wanting to stay is definitely important. Are there any other measures that the hospital is putting in place to change something over 2 years so that you're not back here in another year and a half saying we still need this incentive for another 2 years? And that could, even doing everything right, we understand that that could still be the case, but I'm wondering if there are other ideas that the hospital is thinking about putting in place to encourage people to stick around.
Yeah, and it's a great question. And essentially what you're referring to is what do we have in place to retain physicians over the long period of time? And we've started trying to focus in on that. And one of the initiatives that I actually brought up at the last board meeting was Physician Excellence Awards, basically rewarding physicians for their longevity and commitment to the hospital, for their participation not only in the clinical work, but also some of the administrative work that they participate in. And so certainly having forms of recognition such as plaques, such as posters around the hospital indicating that we certainly value the clinical care and longevity and the commitment that they've had to the hospital over time. So that's just the start of sort of the programs we're going to start rolling out in terms of trying to retain some of the physicians. But it's an excellent point, is that we need to strengthen that part of the process for physicians.
Thanks. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Dr. Santongo. Nice to see you here again this evening.
Nice to see you, Dory.
Thank you. Just to build on Councillor Strachan-Yan's comments about what other measures, when you spoke about changing the culture around the way physicians work and the way the whole department works, I wonder what else have you considered? Have you considered having your RNs working to full scope of practice? Have you considered having a nurse practitioner on staff in Emerge that could, RNs at full scope of practice could certainly take care of sore throats, UTIs, a whole lot of things that that they could do the assessment, they could do the treatment, the patients could be cared for and gone, and the physicians focus on the things that they absolutely need to do. Absolutely, we need physicians. They have to be there. I'm not suggesting we replace them, but I'm just wondering if the whole culture of more of a team where the right provider for the right condition is done at the right time, et cetera, increase the quality, increase the access, reduce the wait times, that sort of thing. I think it's, and I also agree with the award system, and loyalty to the organization is very important. I mean, I worked for 50 years, 50, at the civic campus of the Ottawa Hospital. So loyalty to the employer is something I know very well. And I think also working in a team where you can work to full scope of practice and be recognized for what you do is very important, and that's what keeps people there. So I'm just wondering if you've considered that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. The answer is yes. At the last board meeting, we actually started a process where we would start credentialing nurse practitioners for the very first time. We never had that before. And it was part of a recognition that we need to start thinking about alternatives apart from just the traditional physician route. And so that is certainly well taken and well received. And the process of credentialing those folks for the first time in Kemptville is the first step in actually recognizing that there are some ancillary services apart from physicians that could be helpful. And I've been, I wouldn't say reticent in the past, but more sort of focused on trying to get emergency physicians there, because if you sort of look at the profile of the of the patients who come to the emergency department, there are high acuity patients, there are also lower acuity patients. Nurse practitioners can certainly take care of the lower acuity patients, but that still doesn't negate the fact that we need to have an emergency physician there to treat both high and low acuity. And so now that the trajectory of our recruitment is fairly positive, it's certainly, I think, time to start looking at those alternatives, and I totally agree. We recently introduced the concept of double coverage shifts, which means that we actually having two physicians available during the peak hours when there are lots and lots of patients. That's a new concept because the funding that has been given to the hospital over the years has only allocated one emergency physician during a shift. And those of you who've ever gone to the emergency department and 2 or 3 ambulances come in and there's one physician who's doing resuscitation, trying to keep that one patient alive and deal with all these other things, and then the wait times skyrocket to 8-10 hours. But that is the structure that was given to us. But we've tried to be creative and try to meet the community needs by trying to get another physician on specifically between those peak hours. And the nurse practitioner models certainly could be useful in that respect, in terms of creating a fast track whereby some of the lower acuity patients could be seen rather quickly and taken care of.
Deputy Mayor, anything else? No? Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Santongo. I just wanted to ask one question. So the incentive is $25,000. Is it annually or biannually?
Annually.
Annually.
Yeah.
And so in your experience, just given your extensive work with other ERs, obviously you have confidence this would tip the scales, if you will, in terms of getting a potential ER doctor to commit. Help me understand, right?
Mm-hmm.
I understand the contribution is not insignificant, but it just strikes me as curious that, that allocation from your perspective and the hospital's perspective would have such an influential effect. Can you help me understand why you think that's the case? Is it because other hospitals aren't providing any sort of incentive for ER doctors, so it's just a little bit of an extra to get a doctor to commit here in ways that maybe they wouldn't. I hear you saying that ER doctors don't necessarily tend to be focused on one hospital alone. So the commitment you're asking for here, I think, doesn't preclude their attachment to other ERs, but it does ensure that they give a certain number of hours, of course, and cover off many different shifts at our ER. So I'd just love to hear a little bit more about why you think the financial incentive is likely to result in a different and improved scenario at the hospital.
Okay. It's a great question, Your Worship. So right now, as I mentioned in my presentation, there is intense competition between community hospitals specifically. Tertiary care hospitals don't really have that issue in terms of recruitment. And most of the emergency physicians are focused and are in the tertiary care centers, the Montforts, the Queensways, the Ottawa Hospital. The Ottawa Hospital has 100 emergency physicians. They have no issues with the recruitment. It's once you get outside of Ottawa that the competition starts. And different regions have been trying to provide these incentives in order to have physicians, number one, actually stay in that particular area and commit to that particular hospital. And so it's the other alternatives, which is come experience our emergency department, experience our town, that works to a certain extent. But I think over the time I've been in this position, I've become very clear-eyed about the things that make people commit and make them want to stay. And sometimes it goes beyond the culture, it goes beyond the sense of collegiality, it goes beyond the sense of camaraderie they feel in a particular location, and the financial part comes into play.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I guess moving on, after this delegation, of course, Michelle, you'll be speaking to a staff report on this particular issue. Might I ask just one other question?
Yep.
I know that you had the pilot with the Ottawa Hospital and it proved to be successful and I think stabilize the ER. I heard you say that there's now funding available for that second ER doctor, or is that something that KDH itself is pursuing to ensure, obviously, to your point, that you're not relying on a single ER physician or primary care practitioner when there's often such a crowded waiting room, if you will. So even though the pilot obviously isn't something you're proceeding with, can you help us understand whether or not you would see the pilot coming back at a different stage of the game, or is it your hope that really using the resources at your disposal and potentially with a little help from the municipality or other sources, you'll be able to stabilize things without having to revert to that pilot?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I do not foresee the pilot coming back. Our ability to provide those limited double coverage shifts where we have two physicians during peak periods has come about as a result of the numbers that we have been giving the ministry, which determine our funding, have improved. And I'll explain what that means is that there was a period of time that our left without being seen numbers were pretty high. That means that patients would come to the emergency department, they would stick around in the waiting room, and then for whatever reason, maybe the wait was too long, maybe they checked their app and found out that the fracture that they had was, I mean, what they thought was a fracture is no longer a fracture, and then they decided to leave. So we instituted a policy where we changed our workflows and ensured that there at least was some sort of physician interaction really, really early on. And that improved our numbers with the ministry. And that translated into increased funding, and thereby we were able to provide those double coverage shifts.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I know the volumes have been high, so in fact, it comes as a relief to me, at least, to hear that you have that capacity to introduce that second ER doctor, given, I think, what you're seeing in the ER for all kinds of reasons. Okay. So with that, colleagues, oh, I'm sorry. Of course, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may, just another question then. So just to clarify, the physicians, the ED physicians who would perhaps qualify for this retention bonus, the ones who work part-time at 45 hours a month, would they, are they typically primary care physicians who do this extra on top of their primary care practice? And then any of the physicians that get the primary care incentive from us also have to do hospital time. They either have to do emergency shifts or hospitalist shifts. So would they be considered the part-time physicians? And are we kind of shooting ourselves in the foot one way or the other? We give them an incentive to be a physician in emerge, or we give them an incentive to be primary care, and maybe some of them are doing both, and we're not really gaining anything if they're working on their own in emerge instead of working full-time primary care.
Yeah, and another great question. I think Hillary was going to speak a little bit about the family physician incentives. What the landscape currently is that it's very rare now for family physicians to feel comfortable working in the emergency department. So when Hillary's approached me in the past about what are the needs of the hospital, I've said, well, predominantly hospitalists as well as surgical assists, because I understand that family physicians are just not comfortable working in the emergency department, in the sense that they don't feel that they have enough adequate training to deal with some of the higher acuity patients that are coming through the department. And that's fair enough. So the physicians that we have recruited, the 10 or so, are not family physicians. They are 5-year emergency physicians. And some of them have done the family physician 2-year program as well as the +1, but not too many of them. So I understand your point, Councillor Sullivan, is that you want to make sure that people are not receiving money from two pots or something along those lines. But the reality is that the physicians who are coming to us, who we would like to keep, are the 5-year trained emergency physicians from the Ottawa Hospital.
So why would they want just part-time?
Well, because they would still be working at the Ottawa Hospital while they're working with us.
Oh,
Or working at other locations. So this is what I alluded to earlier, is that the quintessential emergency physician who works in community hospitals works at multiple locations. Right. It's very rare for them to actually commit to one place and stay there. So those part-time physicians would be working at the Ottawa Hospital part-time and working in Kemptville part-time. And yeah.
okay. Well, and so the times when you need, or when it would be ideal for you to have 2 care providers, if one of them was an emergency trained physician and the other was a nurse practitioner who had a particular interest and lots of experience in emergency, that would be a good partnership as well then, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely. And sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I used to work obstetrics and gynecology, and I remember very well when nurse midwives came on board at the Ottawa Hospital and credentialing nurse midwives. And there was opposition with the obstetricians, no doubt, but eventually they came to be very much part of a team and respected each other, and it was a great setup, you know, a great partnership, and worked very well for patients. And I think the same thing could happen here. It is a culture shift that has to happen, and I think forward thinking and would be a good step.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah.
you. I have to keep plugging that.
No, no. I work very closely with our VP, and she's as you know,
Absolutely.
she's a nurse practitioner, and she's constantly in my ear, and we'll get it done.
Yes, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions, colleagues? I'm not seeing any. So, Dr. Santongo, I know you have a heavy workload and immense responsibility at the hospital. So thank you so much for sharing some of your time with us this evening and giving us the benefit of better understanding how to stabilize the ER. To your point, there's no urgent care clinic in North Grenville. There are no walk-in clinics. I know that certainly the FOs do have after-hours services, so it's not to diminish what they're trying to do outside of regular business hours. But the reality is there's lots of folks in North Grenville that use the ER as a critical access point. So we appreciate how much work you and your team have done to stabilize operations and are paying close attention this evening. And I'm going to hand you some granola bars for your very patient son who has been with you for over an hour. So I'll hand those to you as you leave.
Okay, thank you. And again, I certainly appreciate the questions. They were great questions, and honestly, Mayor Peckford has my email, and so if there's any other questions and clarifications you need, please. And Doreen certainly has Constable Sullivan has my email address, so please reach out to me if you've got any other questions. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so thank you, Clerk, for allowing us to have that brief pause. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. Or are we considering the staff report first? We'll have the staff report first. Okay, so Ms. Janot, we'll leave it to you to walk us through the staff report.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Your Worship, the purpose of my report is to provide council some information about the current primary care incentive program, should they choose to explore changing the current incentive or direct staff to explore a new incentive for emergency department recruitment. Council adopted a primary care incentive in 2023, and since then, 4 physicians have received funding. The incentive was adjusted in May 2025 to focus the required hospital coverage on emergency department and hospitalist work. At that time, Council also directed staff to report back on possible changes of the incentive, dependent on provincial advancements regarding interprofessional primary care teams, for which the municipality supported an application for a nurse practitioner-led clinic and allied support for the existing local clinics. We do not currently have any updates on this application. However, should the local application be successful, partners have indicated it would not be difficult to recruit nurse practitioners or allied health professionals for the clinics. At that time, Council also allotted $20,000 to support the recruitment efforts of the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. These efforts are ongoing, including a visit from international physicians just last week. The draft 2026 budget includes $80,000 for current agreements, $20,000 for UCLG initiatives, and $40,000 for new family physician incentives. As of the January 2026 primary care meeting, 2 clinics were each interested in recruiting 1 additional physician. Staff have done some initial research on municipal hospital incentives and found 1 community that offers an incentive to emergency department physicians. Belleville offers $75,000 for a 5-year commitment and have attracted 1 physician in the past 10 years. An alternative program exists in Brockville where the hospital pays recruiters to bring in specialists, and the recruiters are paid a fee based on the recruited specialist salary. That is all I have to share at this time, but I'm happy to take any questions or direction from Council as we finalize the first draft of the budget.
Thank you. And at this stage, I can see that the recommendation is to receive the report. So obviously, I think it's important to highlight the council has another opportunity beyond tonight to think about the kind of commitments we make to certainly KDH and many other community organizations. But I guess, council colleagues, I'll look to you if you have any questions specifically for Ms. Jeannot. And I see Councillor Strachan and then Councillor Sullivan and then Deputy Mayor. All right, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Ms. Jeannot. I don't have a question for you, but I just wanted to say that the gathering that we had with the physicians last week or the week before was fantastic. I think it was a very good opportunity to get a sense of what they were interested, what kind of experience they were bringing with them. And I think one of the things that I was struck by, and I think it ties into the conversation that we just had with Dr. Santongo, is they wanted to know about the community. They wanted to know what there was there beyond the practice that they would be part of, beyond their official responsibilities as doctors, as physicians, wanting to know what the community had to offer, how they would be welcomed into the community. So they really were looking at how this could become home. And so I think that that's an important part in this, and that we're looking at the financial incentives, which I think definitely get people here and may keep them around for a long for the duration of their agreements. But I think from a longer term perspective, perhaps what we should also be thinking about is what role we have to play as a municipality and how we can make this environment, this community, home for these new physicians to our area. And it isn't necessarily changing anything, but letting them know what's here, right, and understanding what this community has to offer. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for your role in bringing those physicians here. I thought it was a very productive conversation, and hopefully we'll have opportunities to do that more in the future. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I spent the other day going through all of the documents for this week and crafted about 10 questions for each one, so I'll try to be as brief as I can. Just to follow up on Councillor Strachan's comments, it definitely was very interesting to meet those physicians and to chat with them. And they did want to know about Kemptville and what it's like here. But they also made comments, and it was a kind of a mild snowy night, not significant, but someone had told them it was a once in a 40-year snowstorm. And they thought it was, this was not a common practice. But Dr. Morgan said, oh, yes, it is. This is common, but they had been in Toronto, and that's maybe much worse. So I don't think they were too thrilled with all the snow. But anyway, so a couple of questions. In Belleville, they've had recruited 1 in 10 years. That's not a significant success story. And in Brockville, it sounded like the recruiters were paid $35,000 for bringing in a physician, not the physician. So it sort of rewards the recruiters, not the physicians. Currently, right now in North Grenville, how many doctors can the FOs take right now? I thought they were pretty close to full. So that's one question. And can and will we expand this to recruit NPs as well as physicians? What is the new incentives for the 40,000, and what is the 20,000 for United Counties Leeds Grenville incentives? And I also wonder about the return on investments for having the first-year medical students coming and spending time. It's nice to introduce them to the community, but first-year medical students are still finding their way and thinking that they are going to sign on and expect that they can make a decision at that point to commit to being here, I think is premature. I mean, of the many of the primary care physicians that I worked with in the family health team, some of them are now emerge physicians. Some of them are land developers. Some of them are plastic surgeons. Some of them have gone into medical aesthetics. They don't all stay in primary care. So it's to expect someone as a first-year medical student to commit to that. I think the last group we had, not one of them intended to be in primary care. And a couple of them didn't even intend to stay in Canada. And a couple of them were already deemed to be surgeons or had already decided they wanted to be surgeons. So I don't know if there's a good return on investment for the first-year medical students. So those are my comments. We want to get the best value for the money that we spend. We don't have a lot of extra money to float around, so I think we need to make the best decisions and put it where there's the best return on the investment. So those are my comments and questions. Thank you.
Ms. Janot, do you want to offer any responses at this stage?
Of course, I wrote them all down, so please let me know if I forgot one, Councillor Sullivan. So how many doctors can the family clinics currently take? So 2 of our clinics are each looking for 1 new physician. They would have to get ministry approval for those, but they don't see that as a barrier. Our other clinic is actively looking to further develop another location that would expand their space to add more physicians. In regards to can we add NPs to the incentive program, as I mentioned in my report, we did consider doing that as we were putting forward the application for the IPCT. Both the clinics and the hospital have indicated they wouldn't have any problem recruiting nurses and nurse practitioners, so they didn't feel there was value in applying funding for that. The $40,000 currently in the draft 2026 budget currently is intended to be for further family physician incentives. So that would be for 2 new docs. The $20,000 is for the United Counties and Leeds and Grenville initiatives. So when council approved this back in May 2025, that was at the CAO's delegation. So we've talked, for example, at the session last week, we talked with some doctors about what would you need if you came and recruited to what you would need to move to the community. A couple mentioned, an apartment lease for a few months and things like that. So if we do get someone recruited through the UCLG program, we would have that discussion to see how we could utilize those funds. In terms of the med students, so typically we spend less than $500 on the 2 groups of med students that we get. This is part of their schooling program, and our local physicians sign up to be basically kind of proctors for those 2 weeks. So to Councillor Strachan's point, we take it upon ourselves as a municipality just to welcome them to the community and show them what rural life can be like. Most of them have what they see here is very new to them. So it's always nice to have them out and have them explore the community rather than staying in the clinic for the whole week.
Thank you. I think Deputy Mayor, were you on the list? Just wanted to make sure I recognized.
Just the $80,000 that you're suggesting is already an existing commitment over 5 years, $20,000 apiece. And I got your explanation of the United Counties of Leeds and Granville. Is that a maximum? Are we leveraging their funds, or we would? I mean, are we matching funds that they have? I'm a little unclear on what the UCLG 20 grand, what the details are on that. Thanks.
Through your worship. So the intention of that, based on my understanding of the discussion at the May 2025 council meeting, was to support attracting any doctors who are recruited through the UCLG initiatives. So for example, if they recruit one of the UK physicians who we met last week, perhaps they need an apartment for 3 months, we could provide some funding for the lease for that.
So that program is funded by the United Counties, Leeds and Grenville. So that's why George Smitherman and all that stuff was on behalf of the counties. Okay, I didn't pick that up. And then you've had indication that there might be 2 additional primary care doctors at $20,000 apiece. That's the new initiatives line. Is that correct?
Through your worship, that's correct. 2 clinics have indicated that they're actively looking to bring on new physicians. As I mentioned, they would have to get ministry approval. They technically are fully staffed from a faux perspective, but they see that there would be no issue with them getting that approval.
And that incentive is just for a single year. I'm using this $20,000 a physician for 1 year. We're for 5 years. So in fact, that $40,000 is 40,000 for 5 years. Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to clarify. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think my only comment at this stage is, of course, I think we've had a bold and impactful physician recruitment program. And certainly, I think to your point, Ms. Janot, we've had 4, right? We've made commitments of 4 spots at $20,000 a year each. So that's $80,000 per year over 5 years to support those 4 new recruits. And of course, the intention had been to do our best, or do our part, I guess, to stabilize some key gaps in the family health organizations. I guess, given tonight's presentation, I have some interest in talking about whether or not, instead of adding an additional 2 faux spots, that we look more strategically at the ER investment, recognizing that the hospital has done an excellent job at stabilizing things through a partnership with the Ottawa Hospital, but recognizing that's coming to an end. My inclination is, with the possibility of getting the nurse practitioner-led clinic in North Granville, which will help to bring down the waiting list, provide much more primary care in the community than we've seen previously. There would be potentially, in my opinion, more value in looking at stabilizing the ER for that 2-year period versus locking ourselves in at $100,000 each for an additional 2 faux spots, which are those family health organizations. So I know the recommendation is to receive your report, but I feel like it's premature to receive the report if it signals sort of tacit approval, if you will, or endorsement, right, of those additional 2 faux spots, because I personally am not convinced that's where we should direct our resources at the present time. I think we have 4 family health teams, or is it just 3? With 3 faux, right? So we've had effectively 4 placements of primary healthcare physicians. Of course, they may not have been distributed equally among the 3 family health organizations, but I feel like we've done some heavy lifting alongside them, and I'd like to see more serious consideration of the ER's incentive program, if it, in fact, does what Dr. Sontango has suggested, which is ensure that we have a sufficient number of ER docs working in a fast-paced, high-volume hospital in a growing community. So that's my feedback at the present stage. I see Councillor O'Sullivan and Deputy Mayor, so I'll invite your comments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Ms. Janot. You can correct me if I'm wrong, and I may not remember all the details of the agreements. So if say a first-year medical student did come here and say, oh, I really want to do this and I really want to be here, can they apply? And do they get funding from the time they apply until they have come here and then finished their 5 years or whatever the commitment is, 4 or 5 years? Do they get the funding all along? No, not until they actually come here?
Correct, through your worship. So we do not sign an agreement unless there's an agreement with a clinic. Clinics typically will not sign an agreement until someone has finished their studies, and we will not give funding until the first day they practice.
Okay. And so if someone gets the money, they get $20,000 a year for 3 years, and then they decide to leave, so they haven't filled their commitment, so they owe us that money back. Do they pay that back with interest, or have we just lent them money interest-free for 3 years or however long it is?
Through your worship, we don't have any interest clause in the agreement, but we do require them to pay it back. We have actually had a physician who we signed on who left after 1 year, and we did get that funding back.
Okay, so that might be a consideration going forward, that we look at how it gets paid back. Thank you.
So Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Just a quick question. I don't know if you have the stats, but have we made any dent on the list of people without a family doctor? I remember a year and a half ago, it was around 3,000 people.
Through your worship, if you take each of the numbers at each clinic, it totals 7,200. We obviously know many of those are duplicates or triplicates even. We have endeavored to try to do some of that work to clean them up and get a better idea of what that number exactly is. But we don't have that at this time. Based on the Healthcare Connect list, which is the provincial list, there are 1,300 people in the community without a physician. But again, we estimate only about 10% of the people who need a physician get on the Healthcare Connect wait list.
And that number hasn't changed, that 1,300. Is that a current number or?
That's the current number right now. Through your worship, I can go back and see. I think it was lower actually at the time. The data through Healthcare Connect in the province, they've gotten a lot better at sharing that information. We now have access to a dashboard. So I can go back and see if there's that historical information, but I'm pretty confident it has grown over time.
For sure. It's definitely the case. I think I concur with Michino that Healthcare Connect as a mechanism to capture waitlist data has gotten better and more people know how to use it, but there were and remain some challenges because if you put yourself on a Healthcare Connect waitlist, you effectively put at risk, right, your relationship with a physician from, say, if you move from North Bay, the minute you put yourself on a Healthcare Connect list, do you compromise the relationship with an existing physician? Michino?
Through your worship, so that used to be the case. Fairly recently, it has changed that now even those who are rostered can get on. But again, I think there is some hesitancy to get on the list. There's that perception that it's not, if you're on the list, it's not that helpful. It's very long wait. And it tends to be, from my understanding and talking to the physicians, that the folks that get on the Healthcare Connect list are those more complex cases.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. So of course, every family health organization has its own wait list. So as physicians get rostered through our incentive program or just through their own general recruitment, it's certainly the case that they are obviously taking patients from their own wait lists that may also be on Healthcare Connect. So it certainly can be, to your point, a little bit convoluted to track all the data, but regardless, what we do know, and I'll recognize you, Councillor Strachan, is that, as we all know, we met with the Deputy Premier and Minister of Health just a couple of weeks ago about the immense value in the primary care proposal to establish the nurse practitioner-led clinic in Kemptville, and we remain quite optimistic that should it be approved, crossing our fingers. I think we've certainly done our best to make that case. Will help to diminish the wait lists on the various family healthcare team lists currently. Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And in response to your comment regarding the needs of the emergency department versus the primary care physicians, I think with both of these presentations tonight and both of these conversations happening at the same time, there needs to be some sort of balance found. The pot of money that we have is not infinite, and we do want to do our best to fund the needs where they're greatest. So I don't know what the magic answer is, but I think reconsidering where that 40K would be best spent would be prudent, especially with the impending deadline of that partnership with the Ottawa Hospital that the emergency department is facing at KDH. So I'm in line with the Mayor's comments. I think it would be good to revisit that and come up with some, I guess, other ideas, proposals for how the money could be best spent. Thank you.
And I think with that said, thank you, Councillor Strachan. Michino, I'd like to better understand what the purpose of tonight's exercise is, because I think you're hearing that we do have some appetite to see if we can support the Campbell District Hospital through their recruitment program. So obviously your report, I think, touches on that, but doesn't necessarily suggest we go in that direction or speaks to a specific allocation. So perhaps you can help us understand how we can better capture, I think, the appetite of council at the present time.
Through your worship, yes, I would definitely appreciate some formal direction because as you stated, if we do not pass any other direction tonight, the incentive will continue as is with the current budget. But happy to take any direction. As Dr. Sintongo said, if we fully funded their ask, it would be $125,000 in the 2026 budget and the 2027 budget. And again, that was for 4 full-time and 2 part-time for 2-year periods. So happy to take any direction to alter and update the budget before it comes to this table. Would be much appreciated.
Okay. Councillor Strakian?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, to Ms. Janot, I think just quick thoughts on this is that the getting 2 new physicians in here will alleviate some of the burden on folks who do not have physicians. Many will still go to the emergency department for their primary care. So I think maybe the best value that we can get out of the 40,000 would be to put it towards the hospital funding for the emergency department physicians, because those physicians will tend to look after a lot more people as a result. And we're talking, 4 + 2 part-time. So not formal direction from council, just my thoughts as an individual councillor. But I think that just trying to find some idea behind, some rationale behind that proposal is sort of where my mind went initially, if that's helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I echo Councillor Strakian's comments. I think that we are, as Mayor said, we are hopeful that the nurse practitioner-led clinic will come to fruition, and that will certainly be able to roster a lot of patients who right now are unattached. And as you said, Ms. Janot, the 2 available positions aren't totally available because they still need ministry approval. And so I think that the 40,000 is much better spent supporting emergency and going forward with focusing on the nurse practitioner-led clinic, which I think will be a very good step.
So again, just to do the math, what I'm understanding is that if we were to work with the proposal as articulated by KDH tonight, it's $100K for the 4 full-time and $25K for the 2 part-time. So it's a $125K proposition times 2. So that's $250,000. But it's over 2 years versus 5 years, right? So the 2 additional faux spots, if we were to incentivize over the 5 years, is $20K a year, times 2, times 5. So this investment is more intense. It's more time limited, but I think we all seem to agree that stabilizing the ER is likely the better scenario at this stage of the game. So I think the question will be, Ms. Janot, how that, if we give you that direction this evening to at least proceed with efforts to incorporate that into the budget, then obviously during the first presentation of the budget, Ms. Dunlop and her team, including yourself, can highlight how that particular investment is funded, right? Because I think that's the question. This is a more intensive investment over 2 years, but to, I think, everyone's point, does what I think Dr. Santongo has suggested this evening. So if we want to provide that direction, I'll look for a mover and a seconder to instruct Ms. Janot to pursue the proposals this evening from the Kemptville District Hospital to establish the incentive for the ER. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Strakian? I just need a seconder so we can get it on the floor. Deputy Mayor, and then I can take comments. So does anyone wish to comment? Okay, so Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Sullivan. Again, I don't think because we're providing direction to make efforts to incorporate it into the budget, it means that necessarily it will be part of the budget, or all of it
Right.
will be part of the budget. But I think we're asking Ms. Janot to work with the senior management team to make their best effort. So Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, just thank you, Madam Mayor, and to Ms. Janot. Again, I'm fixated on this 40K, which is 2 positions, $20,000. But am I to understand that that's every year for 5 years?
Yes. It's a $100,000
So it's-
commitment per family physician.
So it's 200,000 in total, right?
Correct.
Okay. I think I think it's unanimous in terms of what this council is looking for. So I'm happy to support the motion when it comes to vote.
And I know it does look confusing because you think just 20,000, but it's 20,000 times 5 years, times the number of physicians we're supporting. So we're already supporting 4 physicians at that 20K a year commitment for those 5 years. Councillor Sullivan, is there anything else you wanted to add, or Councillor Strahan?
Just to clarify then, that 40,000 that was for new incentives would be redirected towards
Yes.
the Kemptville District Hospital Emergency Department requirements.
Correct.
I would also like to see, okay, so if we were funding nurse practitioners, recruitment of nurse practitioners, it would have been part of that 40,000?
Through your worship. So we didn't have any mechanism to recruit nurse practitioners through the current program that exists.
Okay, so that's fine. I'll leave that for Dr. Santago to get nurse practitioners in the hospital. So yeah, I would certainly support that. I'll second that motion then to redirect that 40,000 towards Kemptville Hospital.
I believe Deputy Mayor may have already seconded. Did we get a seconder? Okay. I will go to Councillor Strachan, but I appreciate your endorsement of the direction tonight, which again, it will come back as part of the budget. It's a fairly significant investment over 2 years. We're not stretching it out. So I think we have to recognize its impact on the budget may be notable or maybe not, sort of depending on how our Director of Finance and her team works the numbers. But that being said, it appears that, as others have stated, we're all on the same page. Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just to make sure that we have the math correct, it's not $200,000 that we'd be redirecting to the emergency department. It is 80,000 because it is only over 2 years. So we would still have 170,000 that would have to be found within our budget for the emergency department ask.
That's right.
Okay, yeah,
That's correct.
just because we're talking about all these numbers, so I want to make sure that we're still talking about that difference there. So
Correct.
it is 170,000 plus the 80 if we wanted to redirect it towards the emergency department. Thank you.
Indeed, because the total ask exceeds that of the 2 faux spots, and it's over 2 years, not 5 years. So you are correct. That being said, we have colleagues within the municipality that can figure out how to best deliver on the direction. But again, if it proves to be undoable, or if there are concerns, obviously they'll be raised with us during the budget process. So I think we've got a motion. We have on the table. Any other comments before I call the vote? Okay, calling the vote. All in favor? Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Thank you for being here. Again, representatives of Kemptville District Hospital, namely Dr. Santago and his lovely child, and of course, Jen. Jen, I am so sorry. Of course, Jen is here. Jen, you, in my mind, I still have you wearing a journalistic hat, not a KDH hat, but we're very happy you're here. Thank you so much for coming. Yes? Bye. Thank you to Jen Westendorp, who was also part of tonight's, at least presence. So we appreciate her being here as well. Okay, so with that, colleagues, it's already 8:11, but I presume we'll move on for a little bit longer before taking a short break. Okay, so next is our consent agenda. And you'll see that there's just a few items on here, if I'm not mistaken, and that's in regards to the recommendations for a G1, G2, and G3. This is the borrowing bylaw, fairly standard. The waiver of fees for the Masonic Lodge and the North Grenville Public Library Board minutes. Does any member of council wish to pull any of the proposed consent agenda items? None? Okay. So then I will ask for a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the consent agenda. Okay, Councillor Strachan, Councillor Sullivan, thank you very much. And I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? Great, thank you. So with that, we're going to minutes of previous meeting, and that is from January 27th. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes. May I have one, please? Councillor Sullivan and Deputy Mayor, thank you. Any comments or questions in regards to the minutes? Thank you to the clerk's office for staying on top of the minutes in such a timely fashion. I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? Great. So next, we're going to welcome Mr. Finley in regards to the canoe installation on County Road. Is that right? Is it Mr. Finley? Oh, I'm sorry. I would appreciate, it's always helpful if I know which director is presenting the report. So I'm sure in future, I welcome any guidance in terms of who's carrying the report. So with that, Ms. Janot, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do believe it is identified on your script if you see it in red there, just to direct your attention there for the next few, but I am the next few. So in regards to our canoe installation, thank you, Your Worship. So community member Jerry Reckmans has created a canoe sculpture made of reclaimed auto parts for the Indigenous Advisory Circle. The Circle investigated installing the sculpture on the Prescott Street Bridge, but further analysis of the bridge was cost prohibitive and planned work on the bridge would delay installation. The United Counties of Leeds and Grenville Public Works staff are open to the installation on the north face of the new County Road 43 bridge over the water, but require this council's endorsement. A sign has been created for the installation that could be installed at Anniversary Park, where the sculpture would be visible from the dock or in the water for watercrafts to view. I did go out to Anniversary Park today and attempted to get on the ice and decided that was a bad idea. So did get some photos of what it would look like in the summer. And while it is quite distant, it would be a lot closer with the new bridge. So I do think that could still be a good spot to have the sign or elsewhere. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Colleagues, any questions in regards? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I know. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Janot. I know originally it was planned to be on the concrete embankment in front of Salamanders. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm thinking the alternate position was on the Prescott Bridge, but I understand that might be coming under some renovations, so that sort of scrubs that idea. I've actually seen the beginning of the installation, and it's a lot of fun. So when apparently the engineers that considered the first placement, it was rather expensive to get an evaluation. Will we get sign off from the counties at the engineering level or just strictly permission?
Through Your Worship, it's my understanding it would be the engineering level. The problem with the wall and then the bridge, but mainly the wall, was that area was so old in its design that we didn't have any original design drawings. And they essentially said they can't confirm that there's any kind of counter lever keeping the wall in place. Obviously, the wall is in place, so there is something there, but they can't confirm that. So any further engineering reporting would have been quite a cost.
So thank you. So the counties will cover the engineering evaluation in terms of what's involved and whether it could be put on the bridge?
Through Your Worship. So in discussions with them, they've only identified the installation cost and the maintenance cost. So my understanding is that with the new design of the bridge, they would basically factor it in. And considering the new age of the bridge, there wouldn't be too much of a concern.
Okay, any other comments? I'm not seeing any. So if colleagues are comfortable, it sounds like a lovely gesture. And what a wonderful offer to have it designed locally. So And I'm very grateful and appreciative that the counties is a willing collaborator here. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Strachan, Deputy Mayor, in regards to the proposed canoe installation at the County Road 43 Bridge. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
And I would add that I think an interpretive plaque has already been designed and ready to be installed wherever the canoe is placed.
I think it's extremely valuable. So obviously to have that as part of it. So look forward to seeing both come to fruition. So I'll call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. And now moving on and following my script closely, I can see that Director of Corporate Strategy, Hilary Janot, is here to speak of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Policy Matrix. Go ahead, Ms. Janot.
Thank you, Your Worship. The North Grenville Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Strategy, or EDI strategy, was adopted by Council in December 2024. One of the recommendations in the strategy was to create a matrix to apply when developing new policies. Additionally, key action 5.3.1 in the Community Strategic Plan is also to evaluate policies from an EDI lens to ensure the policies are not exclusionary. The EDI Advisory Committee prepared a matrix in early 2025 and practiced applying it to various policies such as the naming of assets policy and the procurement policy. The draft matrix was then provided to staff to practice applying to new and updated policies this past year. Staff applied the matrix to the alcohol policy, public art policy, and the chicken licensing bylaw. The EDI Advisory Committee reviewed these applications and finalized the matrix at their January 2026 meeting. The matrix will be shared with the senior leadership team and other departmental policy writers. Staff will be provided with guidance on when and how to use the matrix and ongoing support. For now, the EDI policy matrix will be applied to all new or updated policies. As the Clerk Division works to update policy administration, the EDI policy matrix will be integrated into this process and staff will report back on the implementation and approach to deployment. That concludes my presentation and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions, colleagues? So
Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
great. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Sorry about that. I'm
All good.
just formulating the question. And
Indeed.
that is, I see that we are being asked to direct to incorporate the policy matrix. And then you'll be reporting back with more information about the implementation. Although you've already run a bit of a test case in 3 cases. So I'm wondering why you need more. Do you anticipate further problems with implementing the policy matrix? So you've run it past the EDI committee and you've tested it out with 3, and you still think it's going to require more feedback and a review. Isn't that sufficient, the 3 that you've run it past?
Through Your Worship, these recommendations were updated based on CAO advice. But I do think in any case, no matter what, we would be taking the implementation of the policy back to the committee at least, if not to this table, just to give you an update on what's going on. In particular, I do think because the Clerk Division is creating a new, essentially a policy that will govern all of our policies. There's no other good word for policy. I think at that time, it'll be worthwhile to integrate it into that and we can report back at that time, just so council can understand how it's been utilized.
And how will this change the reports that are delivered in public to council?
Through Your Worship, so the clerk and I did have this discussion once the committee finalized the matrix. We talked about how we could possibly integrate it into the council reports. For example, right now, each council report includes how the item relates to the strategic plan. I think that can be more solidified once the policy comes to fruition and the clerk's team has a bit more capacity following the election. And we'll go from there, but I do see a place for it in some form in the council reports.
Councillor Strachan?
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. I guess to the Deputy Mayor's question, so I sit as one of the council representatives on the EDI Advisory Committee, And the conversations that have happened in there have been very fruitful, and they have evolved over time as we've seen more policies. The ones that we've reviewed maybe aren't the strongest test cases. Chicken bylaw, pretty inclusive languages for hens. I don't know. There's challenge. It wasn't really necessarily putting it to the strongest test. And so I think that review, maybe over time, as there are other reviews that take place, we'll have ones that are maybe challenged the way that the current matrix, the wording in there and so on, or where there can be areas that are adjusted and so on. So I guess to amplify what Ms. Janot has already said is, I think coming back and providing that feedback will be fruitful.
Thank you very much, Councillor Strachan. That gives me more information about what we're about to embark on. How long before, or how long, when will we get a review back? How long is this trial implementation period? Is it a year or 5 months?
Through your worship, I'm just looking to the clerk because really we do want to align it with the new policy. I think that makes the most sense. But every few months, every month actually, I report to the EDI committee on the items that are in the strategy, which includes the policy matrix. So every month I'll be giving them an update of who we worked through the matrix with. If council wants to see it anytime before the policy matrix, which I'm guessing is at least maybe a year out at this point, please feel free to ask us to bring it back.
Great. Any other thoughts? I mean, Ms. Janot, as you know, I'm also part of the committee, and I want to thank all committee members, including council colleagues and yourself, for really thinking thoughtfully about how to implement this. My concern, and I know you've endeavored to offer EDI training to many of the staff, is that I've seen other initiatives at other levels of government that at the end of the day result in window dressing because someone's able to provide a very short sentence for an assessment of impact on a group that might be disproportionately impacted by a certain policy. So I think for myself, what would be valuable is what do we consider success, right? Because I know, for example, the counties, there was an effort to capture impacts in regards to climate change and climate mitigation for every major policy thrust that came forward. In my opinion, it hasn't resulted in different policy outcomes. It's a bit of wordsmithing about describing a particular policy by maybe giving a little bit of credence to a particular group that might be impacted differently, but I haven't seen the organization as a whole really even necessarily fully grasp or be able to engage fully, because I do think it requires continuous training. I think directors are often so busy that bandwidth to have the capacity to really bring this policy matrix to life could be limited. So I think it's wonderful that the committee has done the heavy lifting, that we have, if you will, tested it through a couple of recent policy initiatives. But I would like to see, no matter who's sitting around this table in a year, that we've actually done our best to assess success. And that's, I guess, the one thing I haven't really seen in terms of moving forward to implement. So I wonder if we might direct the CAO to work with you or direct you directly, you tell me, to help work with the committee on establishing some minimal criteria for success. And that way you have an additional mechanism at your disposal to perhaps strengthen the matrix or insist on a certain number of trainings. So not just one training, but maybe there needs to be continuous training in this area because it's such a complex realm. So I think it's great for us to say, absolutely, go for it. But I think it doesn't necessarily equip you or the municipality to realize true success in terms of the effectiveness of the matrix. So if I might, I wonder if we could request that you come back in 6 months and tell us what you think. And if there are other pieces or elements that would support you and the senior leadership team to successfully sort of pursue implementation of this or the application of this framework. What do you think?
Through your worship, I do think we have seen some tangible improvements with the policies that have come forward. The naming of assets policy in particular, we included quite a bit of language in there regarding the naming of natural assets in terms of using Anishinaabe language, which is more than just use it. You know, there's a proper process to follow, consultation to be done. I can speak, I know my conversation with Director Martin when we reviewed the chicken bylaw policy, it came up about making sure as the licensing goes forward that the costs aren't prohibitive for those facing socioeconomic disadvantage. So I do think it's hard to definitely quantify in the world of EDI what has been improved because we know there aren't really any hard stats that could show that. But certainly we can report back to council. I will say that the next training that senior leadership and supervisors and managers are receiving in a couple weeks in February is specific to policy writing. We will, as I mentioned in my report, myself and my team will be meeting anytime someone uses this policy or wants to meet with us to use the policy to make sure it's used appropriately. And I think to the point of the committee as well, they made a great decision at the last meeting to, instead of making the matrix yes or no questions, they ask how. So how does the policy do this? So I think that really changes how people utilize it.
So I see that the third element in this recommendation is that staff report back with more information. So perhaps we can invite that report in 6 months while we're still here in this term so that we can benefit from some of your insight on what you think is going well and where you think some additional resourcing or training could be beneficial. How does that sound? Okay, so we'll just amend then, if you don't mind, Ms. Boss, the recommendation at the end to say that staff report back in 6 months with more information. Okay, so with that, I'll look to a mover and a seconder for all the aspects of the recommendation, which is obviously that we receive the EDI policy matrix. We direct staff to incorporate the policy matrix, and that obviously we ask that staff report back in 6 months. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Strachan, Deputy Mayor, any other comments or questions?
Somewhat related to this motion, but I'd be very curious to find out what this policy of policies is all about.
That's right. Ms. Boss?
Can you, in one sentence, tell me what this policy of policies might be doing?
Through you, Mayor, I refer to it as a governance policy. So it outlines and defines what is considered a governance policy that comes to council's table for consideration, an administrative policy that can be approved by senior leadership. It also defines standard operating procedures, internal policies. So it is a policy on policies, but it sets a clear governance structure for what type of items funnel through each approval system. Knowing that some items are political in nature and should be a governance policy that council approves through bylaw or through resolution, where there may be administrative policies that senior leaderships or managers can. It'll also likely have a formal naming convention and a numbering system so that we can better track all of our policies. So that's just a quick overview of what a policy on policies is.
Sounds wonderful.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I believe that the motion's on the table. We're just looking to call the vote. Any other questions? Okay, calling the vote. All in favor? Thanks. And thanks for the work here. I don't in any way want to diminish. I think that heavy lifting the EDI committee is done and yourself, Ms. Jeannot, have undertaken to get us to this point. So I look forward to hearing about more results and positive outcomes later in the year. So we've dealt with the primary care incentive. I understand, I believe, Ms. Jeannot, that you're taking us through. Yes, I'm so glad you've asked that. All right. So I am going to invite council colleagues, moved by Councillor Strachan. I need a seconder so that we can take a quick break. Thank you. Deputy Mayor has seconded. I'm calling the vote. All in favor? Great. We'll take 7. Okay, so we're reconvening at 8:40 and we are looking to have the Director of Corporate Strategy, Ms. Hilary Janot, introduce the report to council on behalf of the Director of Finance, Carly Wheeler, who regrettably couldn't join us this evening. So I'll look to Director Janot to provide that report.
Thank you, Your Worship. Of course, this is not my wheelhouse. So if you do have any questions, I will likely have to take them back to our Director of Finance. This report is requesting Council's approval of the 2026 interim tax levy bylaw. The interim tax levy allows the municipality to issue and collect property taxes before the final tax rates are approved, which is required annually under the Municipal Act. Interim taxes are calculated at 50% of the 2025 tax rate, in accordance with legislation, and do not exceed the allowable limit. The interim levy plays an important role in supporting municipal cash flow early in the year, ensuring continuity of operations before final tax bills are issued. It also helps smooth payments for taxpayers by spreading tax obligations over the year rather than concentrating them later in the fiscal period. The proposed due date for interim taxes is March 31st, 2026, and property owners will receive a notice at least 21 days in advance as required. A portion of the interim taxes collected will be remitted to the county and school boards by the end of March. The recommendation for you tonight is to approve and enact bylaw 0826 as presented. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any comments or questions, colleagues? In regards to this one, it's fairly standard, as we know. Deputy Mayor.
This is a related question that I've run past the clerk, but the BIA levy, will that be calculated on the past levy, last year's levy, and will that be advanced to the BIA prior to June? Through you, Madam Mayor, to the clerk. Or Ms. Janot, if she wants to pass it on to Ms. Wheeler.
To you, Deputy Mayor. The interim taxes take 50% of what was collected last year and recover them from property owners. What happens once we calculate the final tax rate is then we take off what you've paid already in the interim. So essentially they'll be collected on 50% of last year's, and then any difference will be made up on the final tax bill. So the Old Town Kemptville levy for commercial properties assessed in the business improvement area will see 50% of their last year's levy on their interim tax bill, and no changes for their budget will be impacted until the final tax bills are sent out.
But they, like the municipality, run into a cash flow issue if they are trying to operate on a 2026 budget, which hopefully will be quite larger than their prior budget. So the 2025 budget, if they received half of that, would be substantially lower than what they require to operate. So I'm hoping that, I don't know, we can talk to the finance department about getting some interim cash to the BIA.
Through you, Mayor, to you, Deputy Mayor. I am not knowledged on when we make payment or how we make payment, so that would be a question to discuss with the finance department.
I wonder, with that in mind, Deputy Mayor, if we should provide direction tonight to the Director of Finance through the CEO to at least explore that possibility and return a report to us, because I recognize your point. The BIA would confront a similar challenge as the municipality does. They're working incredibly hard to deliver a number of events and to ensure that they keep their staff paid. So I'd like to see that we ensure that through the discussion this evening, we capture that direction. And obviously, when the CEO returns, she can work with the Director of Finance to make sure that the BIA doesn't experience a cash flow challenge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is a little bit more complicated in that we're in the process, hopefully, of expanding.
Indeed.
And our expanded budget is significantly greater than last year's budget. Until we go through the process of expansion, of course, we can't begin to operate on that budget. But in the past, we've encountered a cash flow situation, and there was accommodation to advance the BIA before June some funds. And what I'm asking this time is, should we be successful in expanding, we will be hopefully operating on an expanded budget. And would we have to wait till June to be able to draw down against that? But that'll be a question to finance, not to the clerk. Thank you.
Right. So you have a question for which we do not know the answer, which means we cannot necessarily provide direction because there is no one here this evening to speak to it. Okay. So I guess from a bring forward basis, just so this doesn't get lost, I do maybe through Ms. Janot, she can highlight the question. And if we do need to provide direction to ensure that there is no cash flow challenge to this, to the BIA, I think we should make sure that we do that sooner rather than later. So, okay. And Ms. Janot, I'm sure can endeavor to find an answer for us in the next little while. Because we'll have a number of budget meetings where certainly we have that opportunity to provide additional direction if required. Okay. I'm sorry, Ms. Boss, I don't remember if I asked for a mover and a seconder. No. Councilor Strachan, you also had a question. Go ahead. Okay, great. Okay. Moving, seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, thank you. If there are no other questions, I'm not seeing hands, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, that carries. Moving on, of course, Ms. Martin has been patiently waiting. She's learned lots about many different initiatives within the municipality and outside of it this evening, but you're here, of course, Ms. Martin, to speak to the rent geared to income supplement agreement.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be quite brief this evening as I am seeking authorization for the mayor and the director of planning, which is myself, to enter into an agreement with United Counties. This would be for the United Counties to provide us with a rent geared to income supplement for 20 of the units within Bell Hall. This was supported by County Council at the Joint Services Committee in principle back in 2024. And again, at the January 6th Joint Services Committee meeting this year, where more details are provided. So the rent geared to income supplements will support us in achieving our targets for providing affordable units as part of our funding agreement. I want to note that how this program works is that the tenant, which is identified through the counties, they do have a list of people who qualify for their program. They pay and remit 30% of their income. It's an identified amount that does change year over year based on what the assigned amount is based on their on the income thresholds. And then the counties will provide the municipality with the portion to get us to the average market rent that would be stipulated in our funding agreement. The proposed start date of the agreement would be in 2027. We're looking at October. That's when we're projecting, hopefully, occupancy to start within Bell Hall itself. It is a 20-month project and would last for a period of 20 years. There is no established value, again, as this funding will fluctuate year over year based on what average market rents are and what that 30% threshold is. So staff are seeking the authorization to sign the agreement, which is a condition of our funding for Bell Hall for our loan agreement. And that concludes my report. If there are any questions, happy to answer. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
I'm in favor of this, but I have a question regarding the RGI list. Will we be drawing names of North Grenville residents, or will we be subject to the county's list?
Through Mayor to the Deputy Mayor. I was prepared for this question this evening, so I have actually brought a copy of the agreement, which does provide that the counties will present us with a list of tenants who qualify for their program. And as a landlord, we do have the ability to address who we want to have rent the units if they're acceptable to our standards and they meet the terms of the county's program. It doesn't stipulate so far as to say that if they give us a name that we have to accept that name. We have that autonomy as a landlord to say yes or no. And then the agreement list it's quite lengthy, and it goes into all the requirements of what the expectations are as being a landlord. But it's not to say that the counties will say you have to accept this person. It is a lease agreement that we are entering into with the tenant, not the counties. So we need to be comfortable with who we're entering into those agreements with as well. But the stipulations are they do have to qualify for the county's rent geared to income program. So that's income based and the tests surrounding that.
Thank you.
Councillor Strakian?
Thank you, through Madam Mayor, to Director Martin. So building on what you just said, will we be creating a list of criteria that we are setting to select folks? So if we, for example, wanted to prioritize North Grenville residents, would that be something that we could include in our criteria so that it is consistent criteria year over year?
Through your worship, to Councillor Strakian. So for the 40 units that are remaining, most certainly we can establish criteria as to how we rent it out. But we want to be very careful in how we do it, so we're not violating anybody's human rights. But to that end, for those 20 units, there'd be a little more stricter criteria on who can rent it based on the county's program. But certainly we could look at some program criteria that we do our best to prioritize existing North Grenville residents, and knowing that the counties serve a larger regional area for housing. So we might have to have some consideration for people just outside of the boundaries of North Grenville. But those are details that we would bring forth for council's approval once we get to that stage. And once we have a service provider in place, that certainly could be something we work with them to provide those criteria around what we would like to see from like a rental perspective. I know there's a desire to prioritize seniors and veterans as well. So certainly we could look at establishing those program requirements closer to occupancy.
Deputy Mayor?
Just a follow-up question along similar lines regarding the RGI list. So if there's a resident in North Grenville who would like to be considered for one of the 20 units that are rent geared to income, they would have to get on the county's list. Is that correct? Or could they apply without being on the county's list?
Through your worship to the deputy mayor, in regards to the rent geared to income units, they would have to be on the county's list because the counties would have to do their background work to ensure that that person qualified for the program. So that person truly in need of that deeply affordable unit is accessing it. They could also just apply to the municipality for a unit that would be rented out at the average market rent as well. But understanding those who need that deeper affordability would be more interested in getting on the county's program. As we get closer to occupancy, which is next year in Q4, staff will be working on a communications plan as to how people can express their interest in the units. If you are interested in the county's RGI units, how do you get on their list? What are those requirements? We'll work with the counties to get their information for that. And that way we're communicating out to everyone as to how, if you would like to rent in Bell Hall, how can you go about doing so? As we get closer to those dates, those details become more finite, and with the support of a future service provider who will be doing our operations, we anticipate that we'll have a point of contact, so residents can reach out to that individual to find out more about renting, and we can create a distribution list as well for people who want to rent in 2027, or if there's a unit that comes available after the initial rental period.
Thank you. My question is, why wouldn't the agreement have been attached to the report? Is there confidential information? I know we had a robust discussion. You were there at the United Counties. I don't understand why we wouldn't have seen a copy of the agreement.
Thank you, Your Worship. I received it in the mail late last week, so I didn't get a chance by the time the report was due to submit it, but certainly we can sit down and go through the terms together. We usually don't attach agreements to, but they are available to council should they wish to see them.
I think this agreement is very significant because of the opportunity and limitation it provides, because we understand that those deeply affordable units are incredibly important to the project, But we also understand that by entering into this agreement with the counties, we're limiting who we serve within the community. And I would like to see how the counties or how the county understands the agreement in finer detail. I fully accept that the deeply affordable units are important to the project and important to the community, but I, at the same time, at the same time, choosing my words carefully, I'm curious to know how this plays out. Because it may be that 10 of the 20 people served through those deeply affordable units happen to be from North Grenville, right? We don't know how the list developed by the counties will be deployed for the purposes of these units. There may be people in Gananoque that never actually want to relocate to North Grenville. So there already may be geographic bias, but I also know, given the extensive waiting lists for rank year to income units at the counties, and we hover around 400 every year, it doesn't change, that I expect that these units will be widely utilized by people across the region. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we also understand that this project is being largely enabled by the municipal commitment as well as an external funding partner. So it would be appreciated if we had that opportunity to look at the agreement, just so that we can fully understand, or I can fully understand on behalf of council. And I'm sure you've been through it, Ms. Martin, with a fine tooth comb. So I know I trust your assessment, but I'm also curious to see how the counties understands its partnership with us in this regard. Oh, I'll let Ms. Martin go first and then Deputy Mayor.
To respond to your comments there, Mayor Peckford, this is their standard rent supplement agreement that they enter into with other landlords who provide rent geared to income units. I would say it's quite standard in nature. I don't think there's any surprises when I read through it. It just stipulates the nature of the relationship, as well as, what's our responsibility versus the counties. They're providing the rent supplement. We are still in charge of all of our natural rights as a landlord under the Residential Tenancies Act, but it does stipulate from a program participation standpoint that the landlord agrees to participate in the program by leasing the units only to such persons as shall be referred to it during the term by Leeds Grenville, which is the counties. Leeds Grenville shall refer a qualified applicant to the landlord every time a unit becomes available. The landlord in Leeds Grenville may amend Schedule A, which lists our units that are to be provided, their respective heirs, executors, administrators, successors, and assignees, as the case may be. And as I read that, it doesn't mean that, they refer, and they will have a list of individuals who are referred to us that we can work with to lease units to. I do want to acknowledge that we have, there is a wait list for their Bridge Street location as well that I would assume has North Grenville residents on that waiting list to get in. This certainly can be a conversation I take back to the counties as to, is there a way in which, with their waiting list, if there are North Grenville residents, is that something that they could identify as part of their process when recommending residents, to say we would like to support those in the community first before we look at regional. I'm not certain of their policies around that program, but it's a question that we can ask and certainly request of them, that when Bell Hall comes online, can we prioritize those residents within the North Grenville boundaries first before looking regionally? But again, I don't want to make any commitments on their part at this time without understanding how they run their program, because I don't know if they prioritize it based on how long you've been on the wait list or your need, because that also can change from individual to individual.
And I appreciate your suggestion, and I'm going to go to Deputy Mayor. And I think this kind of nuance is critical, because my understanding is you can only decline on an offer for an RGI unit once, and then you go to the bottom of the list. And I understand that there is no distinction between where you might reside in the county versus vis-a-vis where the unit is offered. And I would like to highlight, and I appreciate that the counties were so willing to enter into this agreement, and I was reluctant to say too much at the county table, but I can say it here. Brockville has 900 rent guaranteed income units. We have less than 100. So the reality is I would hope through this initiative, we are able to serve members of our community who, for whatever reason, may be offered a unit in Brockville because that's the unit that's available in that moment. But 2 months later, there's an RGI unit that's available in Kemptville, but they've been knocked to the bottom of the list because they've declined the first offer. So there has been a key policy change at the counties, which disadvantages someone from saying, I'm not ready to move to Gananoque, or I'm not ready to move to Brockville. And I understood, Ms. Martin, when we collectively agreed to pursue these RGI units through the counties, there was a bit of a trade-off. And I wonder if we can strengthen the agreement so that we have a little more wiggle room on behalf of our residents. And I know, of course, the direction that came out of the county table was pretty standard, like let's proceed with these RGI units. However, I think the circumstances are unique because of the investment we're making as a municipality. And I'd like to see if we could strengthen the provisions that allow us to serve residents that are more local in regards to Bell Hall. So that's why I have an interest in the agreement. Again, it's not in any way to question your capacity or expertise. It's just to recognize that I worry about the standard agreement. And I know that's what they've given us, and I know that's the direction that was provided at County Council. But I would like to see if we might be able to go a little bit beyond sort of that standard agreement. I see Councillor Strachan and, I'm sorry, I think Deputy Mayor was waiting, and then Councillor Strachan. Go ahead.
I'd like to suggest that possibly we ask Mr. Morrison, the Housing Division, to come and present to council and so we could ask him directly how this RGI policy might operate, not to hold up passing, authorizing signing of this agreement, but certainly I think what I'm sensitive to is that there's been a lot of interest in these units, and there may be some misunderstanding that we could go to some lengths to clear up now rather than 6 months, 18 months down the road.
Indeed. And if I could just respond, I don't think Mr. Morrison has the authority or jurisdiction to change existing policy. I believe that it might be more prudent to ask Ms. Martin if she can have that conversation to test where the leeway might exist. Because I don't think Mr. Morrison, if he were here this evening, would be able, or any evening, would be able to provide us with any capacity to nuance the policy. But I understand Ms. Martin works closely with Mr. Morrison, and there might be some opportunity to nuance the agreement in that respect. So that might be a first way of proceeding before going down other paths, but I'll refer to Councillor Strachan next.
Thank you. Through Madam Mayor. Director Martin, what is the time sensitivity in
Yeah.
signing off on this agreement?
Through your worship to Councillor Strachan, we need to have the conditions in place by March of the funding agreement, which includes execution of this agreement.
Are you likely, sorry, I've got a couple follow-ups. Are you likely to be able to have that conversation with Mr. Morrison, I believe his name was, and come back to council before March in order for us to make a decision?
Through your worship to Councillor Strachan, yes, certainly conversations with the counties happen quite quickly around these matters. If there's any questions that do arise, they're very willing to work with us in regards to this matter. Given the nature of the request, I'm not certain if we'll reach consensus in an initial conversation. They might have to follow up on their end from a legal perspective. Given the agreement, it would be changes could be outside of what they're naturally used to having within their agreements. The other thing too, and without having the benefit of that conversation, I'm wondering if they're also bound by certain provincial regulations and legislation in regards to how that funding is doled out, especially if it's provided by the province. They might have some legal requirements on that end. I don't know what those are, if there are any, and will do my best to try and understand them in conversation with the counties.
Could I, as my final follow-up, Madam Mayor, recommend a deferral up to the point where we will not be creating other challenges, contractual obligations and so on for our loan agreements and so on, but deferring it up to whatever that date is, early March perhaps, to have Ms. Martin come back with wherever the conversation lands you with the counties, with what information you have, so that you have time to have those discussions, but that we don't make the decision formal tonight. That would be my recommendation.
So a motion to defer can be entertained at this time. I just need a seconder. Okay. Yes, so let's get the motion on the table. So the motion to defer has been moved by Councillor Strachan. It's being seconded by Deputy Mayor. I have Deputy Mayor on the list, or have you asked your question? I fumbled through the deed. Okay. So Councillor Sullivan is on deck. I apologize. Go ahead, Councillor Sullivan. I do
Okay.
remember your most worthy question now. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's more a comment to follow up with Councillor Strachan's suggestion to defer until Director Martin has an opportunity to speak with Mr. Morrison. But I think that no one would dispute the importance of staying in place and the importance of community and family support to people who perhaps are needing this deeply affordable unit to live in. And so I know that's a consideration that's always taken when they're looking for long-term care placements too, that the importance of having family and close network of people close by is very important. And so I would hope that if there's any wiggle room to make those considerations in their policy, that they would consider such a thing, because people who are needing these RGI units probably don't have a car, and currently, if they live in North Grenville, have some connections, maybe family, maybe close friends that they can rely on. And I think having them move out of the area isn't desirable. So I think we should try very hard to make these units available to people as much as possible, pardon me, in North Grenville.
Thank you so much, Councillor Sullivan. And what I can say, Ms. Martin, from the extensive discussions we've had at the county table is that while there is ministry funding for the RGI units, it's not exclusively ministry funding. So there's a lot of tax dollars collectively across the counties that, as I understand it, is also deployed for the RGI units. So I'm hoping that would give us some flexibility. I agree any deviation from policy may be hard to achieve, but I think because this is such a unique project, we should do our best. And it may be to your point that we have to give some reflection. If there is no ability to nuance the policy to just carrying on, but I can foresee disappointment a year after Bell Hall opens, that the most deeply affordable units, in fact, are elusive for many North Grenville residents who might have had an expectation that they could avail of them. And the county policies, just by virtue of the demand, I don't think any longer support people to have a geographic preference. So again, if you decline that offer in Gananoque, you are, I think, as I understand it, and please, I'd love to ensure that my understanding is correct. I think you're back at the bottom and you could wait another 3 years. So it's not a forgiving policy. I understand why they put it into place, but I think it limits significantly how people try to navigate that wait list. So we have a motion to defer on the floor, and I'll look for any final comments, not seeing any. So we'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Okay, keep us posted, Ms. Martin. So now we'll move on to the long-awaited Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund Transfer Payment Agreement. And I believe we're speaking of millions of dollars, Mr. Finley, so we look forward to that discussion.
Yes, we are, and thank you, Madam Mayor. So the report we have for council tonight is to approve and enact a bylaw that authorizes the municipality to enter into a transfer payment agreement with the province of Ontario specifically the Minister of Infrastructure, to receive funding under the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund. This funding was announced back in August of 2025 and does provide a maximum of just over $24.9 million for the construction of Phase B of the Water Pollution Control Plant expansion. That is anticipated to look to tender this fall, this year, and start construction in the new year, pending how our timelines work out with completion of Phase A of the construction. So it does, like I mentioned, it is a maximum funds of $24.9 million for a currently estimated overall project of $35.5 million. So signing of this agreement allows us to move forward with the province. I do note one of the nice incentives with this agreement. The ministry identified that because these projects do have a bit of a financial burden in the typical realm of what we normally do, which is pay our costs upfront, and then we get reimbursement from the province. However, with this agreement, upon signing this agreement, we can receive up to a maximum 25% of what's eligible. So with the agreement being signed, there's just over $6 million that will come to the municipality to help upfront some of the costs of the works. And then further in, as part of the agreement, once the construction contracts are fully awarded by council, up to a maximum of 60% of the contract can be upfronted. So that again helps the municipality with some financing pieces of it. And that 60% would be just under $15 million, which is about $14,946,000. So that will help with some financing as we move forward. And we are looking for, again, that authorization to proceed. And I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Council colleagues, is this fairly self-evident? Yep, go ahead. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to Director Finley. So it's interesting the milestones that we're able to draw upon signing with His Majesty the King. Draw down 25% at the beginning to cover upfront costs. Will that be able to happen immediately, or do we have to wait to the completion of Phase A to contract out that design, whatever would gobble up that 25%?
Thank you for the question through you, Madam Mayor. Those funds become available as soon as the agreement is signed to you to help us move forward. We will be coming up, we're just trying to solidify some of those timelines as we're seeing Phase A come through, and we will be back to council with approval to solidify design and tendering those timelines and the cost for that. And those will be eligible under this. It was all part of the proposal, so we can use the costs that are being fronted to us for those costs.
Yeah, just to clarify my question is, when would we be contracting for the design, I imagine, of Phase B?
Sorry, thank you for the question. So we already have, because the original design was not broken up, we have an overall design for Phase B. We are currently in discussions with the designer of some refinements because of some adjustments to Phase A. So that's the piece we're wrapping up. The overall design is there, and we're going to bring that adjustment piece contract, I guess, forward to council here, I would say probably within the next month or two.
Great. Any other questions? I know obviously this funding from the province is part of the HUSE program. Obviously, certainly reduced the burden on users of the system here in North Grenville. So we certainly appreciate the significant efforts of the province to work with local municipalities to offset the many millions that need to be spent to update older infrastructure, particularly as it pertains, in this case, to our 30-year-old sewage treatment plant, which has been functioning well, but obviously is in need of some TLC and some expansion. Any other questions, colleagues? All right. So with that, the recommendation is that council approve and enact bylaw 1026 to authorize entering into the transfer payment agreement to receive funding, and that we subsequently authorize the Director of Public Works and CEO to execute and submit to the Ministry of Infrastructure all further documents of an administrative nature required to comply with the terms of the transfer payment agreement. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Strachan. Any final questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. So moving on, colleagues, I had pulled an item for discussion. I think this isn't the night to do it, so maybe I could defer the item in regards to the Eastern Ontario Warrens Caucus. They have a significant housing report and update that I'd like to for which I'd love to hear the perspectives of my colleagues, but I don't wish to do that this evening, given the late hour. So is there anything else on the correspondence list that members would like to have flagged for future discussion? Okay, not seeing any, we'll move on. And then, of course, colleagues, you'll remember that we had asked Ms. Boss to bring forward the motion that had been adopted at the Police Services Board. It is before you. I don't think I need to read it. I think you'll see that there is an appeal that we work with the provincial government. In fact, we urge the provincial government to enable all municipalities to access the Road Safety Initiatives Fund as per sort of paragraph 4 in the resolution, which would include the implementation of stop arm cameras on school buses. And that's really it. So we discussed it during the last meeting, as you might recall, and this specifically is what has been passed by the OPP board and also passed by Marrickville Wolford's council and circulated as well to other councils throughout Ontario. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Strachan. Councillor Sullivan, thank you. Any comments or questions? Okay, great. We are looking to have a meeting with STIO in order to better determine what they believe the costing might be for a pilot project to support the establishment of these stop arm cameras. So we'll keep you updated once that meeting has been secured. So the motion's on the table. I will call the question. All in favor? Great. That carries. Thank you. Notice of motions for any future meetings, colleagues? None. Petitions and written communications, there are none. There is literally no one left. I don't know if there's anyone online. Anyone online, Ms. Boss? Okay. So with that, I will look to colleagues for a confirmation bylaw. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Strachan, to confirm the proceedings of tonight's council. All in favor? And then adjournment for 9:18. Moved by Councillor Sullivan. Would you mind? And Deputy Mayor seconded. Calling the question. All in favor?